welcome. Thank you for choosing to spend this quiet time with us. This audiobook novel, Dew-Kissed Ferns in Auroral Light, is crafted as a gentle companion designed to weave a peaceful atmosphere around you, offering a sanctuary of calm as you prepare to unwind or simply find a moment of serenity in your day. In Dew-Kissed Ferns in Auroral Light, we invite you to step into the hushed stillness of a garden awakening. Here, amidst the cool, damp earth and the delicate beauty of nature, you'll join Rowan in quietly observing the world as it transforms in the very first blush of dawn, where each tiny dewdrop holds a universe of light. Before you settle in fully and perhaps set your device aside, should you find comfort here and wish for more moments like this, you might consider a gentle like or subscription to ensure others may also discover this quiet space. And now, please, allow yourself to relax, breathe deeply, and begin this gentle journey into the audiobook novel. Chapter 1, The First Hint of Gray. The world lay suspended in the deep, velvety quiet that precedes the dawn. Inside the small cottage, the air was still and cool, holding the faintest scent of dried herbs and old wood, a comforting blend that spoke of peaceful habitation. Not a sound from the outside world permeated the thick stone walls, only the almost imperceptible sigh of the house settling around Rowan, a familiar whisper in the profound silence. It was a silence that felt ancient, a stillness that blanketed everything in a soft, invisible layer of peace. Rowan had been awake for some time, lying motionless, simply existing within this quietude, allowing the deep calm of the pre-dawn to seep into their being. Slowly, with movements unhurried and deliberate, Rowan drew back the light, homespun coverlet. The air in the room, a fraction cooler than beneath the covers, touched their skin with a gentle caress. Their bare feet met the smooth, worn wooden floorboards of the small bedroom, the surface cool and familiar underfoot. Each step was soft, making hardly a sound as they moved from the sleeping space, through a short passage, and into the main room of the cottage, which served as both kitchen and living area. Here, the shadows were a little less dense, pooling thickly in the corners, but allowing the faint outlines of simple furniture to be discerned: a sturdy wooden table, a pair of simple chairs, shelves holding a few books, and neatly arranged pottery. Rowan navigated the familiar space with an ease born of long habit, their hands finding what they sought without the need for light. They reached for a plain, clear glass tumbler from a shelf, its surface cool to the touch. At the small stone sink, the handle of the old-fashioned pump was smooth and cold. A few gentle rhythmic movements produced a soft gurgle, then a stream of fresh, cool water into the glass. The sound was a small punctuation in the vast, quiet, clean, and pure. Rowan held the glass for a moment, feeling its slight weight, the coolness seeping into their palm. They drank slowly, the water refreshing, clearing away the last vestiges of sleep. With the empty glass placed softly back on the draining board, Rowan moved toward the back door of the cottage. It was a heavy wooden door, its latch a simple iron hook. Lifting it produced a small, dull click, another tiny sound absorbed by the stillness. The door opened inwards with a faint, woody sigh, revealing not the world outside, but a deeper, more intense darkness, an almost tangible blackness that was the heart of the pre-dawn hour. A breath of cooler, damper air drifted in, carrying the scent of moist earth and the faintest, almost ghostly fragrance of night-blooming flowers beginning to fade. Rowan stepped over the threshold onto a single wide stone step that was cool and slightly damp beneath their bare feet. This step was a familiar perch, a place of transition between the sanctuary of the cottage and the quiet unfolding of the natural world beyond. They stood there for a long moment, senses attuned to the profound stillness. The air was heavy with dew, a palpable moisture that seemed to cling to everything. No bird song yet, no rustle of leaves, only the immense breathing quiet of the world holding its breath before the day. Looking eastward over the low silhouette of the hedgerow that marked the far boundary of their small garden, Rowan perceived the very first, almost imperceptible shift. It wasn't light, not yet, but rather a subtle dilution of the deepest black. A faint pearlescent gray, so soft it was more a feeling than a sight, began to bleed into the absolute darkness at the horizon. It was the promise of dawn, the first hushed announcement that the night was beginning its slow retreat. Rowan watched, still and patient, as this faintest of beginnings started its ancient silent ascent, the world around them remaining in shadow, poised for the slow unveiling of the new day. The air held a sense of profound peace, a quiet anticipation that settled gently over everything. The stone beneath their feet remained cool, a grounding presence in the vast, silent theater of the emerging dawn. The garden itself lay as a dark, undifferentiated space before them, its familiar shapes and textures still hidden. Only the slightest difference in the density of shadows hinted at the presence of the ferns and low shrubs. It was a time of pure potential, the world waiting to be painted anew by the approaching light. Rowan breathed in the cool, damp air, feeling its purity, its cleanness. There was a unique quality to this pre-dawn air, a freshness untouched by the activities of the day, carrying only the sense of the earth and its sleeping vegetation. It was a moment of absolute calm, a private communion with the quiet turning of the world. Chapter 2. Pearls on the Fronds. The faint gray in the eastern sky began to gather itself, slowly, almost imperceptibly, gaining a subtle luminescence. It was the auroral light, that gentle precursor to the sun itself, soft and diffused, as if the sky were breathing out a pale, ethereal mist. Rowan remained on the cool stone step, a still figure in the deepening twilight, watching this silent, magnificent unfolding. The air remained cool, carrying that clean scent of damp earth and the green, living breath of the myriad plants in the garden. There was a sense of hushed reverence in the air, as if the world itself was holding its breath. After a few more moments, as the light grew just enough to distinguish the darker shapes of the garden from the lighter tone of the sky, Rowan stepped down from the stone. Their bare feet met the dew-laden grass of the small path that wound through the ferns. The grass was cool and wet, each blade releasing its moisture against their skin, a refreshing, grounding sensation. They moved slowly, with a practiced quietness, each step deliberate, mindful of the sleeping life around them. The path was narrow, bordered on either side by dense clumps of ferns, their fronds arching gracefully, still cloaked in the pre-dawn shadows. As Rowan ventured deeper into the garden, the light, though still very soft, began to reveal more detail. The ferns, which had been mere silhouettes, started to show their intricate forms, and on these forms, something magical was becoming visible. Millions of tiny, perfect spheres of water clung to every surface. The delicate lacework of the fronds, the slender stems, even the undersides of the arching leaves. These were the dewdrops, each one a miniature marvel, capturing and holding the nascent light of the dawn. They shimmered faintly, like countless tiny pearls scattered with a lavish hand across the verdant tapestry of the garden. Rowan paused beside a particularly large cluster of ostrich ferns, their plumes reaching shoulder height. Here, the dewdrops were especially numerous, coating every leaflet, every tiny segment of the complex fronds. As the auroral glow subtly intensified, each droplet began to act as a tiny lens, catching the ethereal light and refracting it into minute, delicate sparkles. Some seemed to hold a faint silvery gleam, while others, depending on their angle, hinted at the palest rose or the softest gold, reflecting the subtle hues that were beginning to paint the eastern sky. The effect was breathtakingly beautiful, a silent, shimmering display of nature's artistry. Rowan leaned closer, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of a heavily laden frond. They observed the perfect spherical shape of the larger drops, held in place by an invisible tension, seemingly defying gravity. Smaller droplets, like fine dust, adorned the very edges of the leaflets, creating a glittering fringe. There was no sound but the incredibly soft sigh of the air, perhaps the distant, almost inaudible drip of a heavier dewdrop, finally letting go from a higher leaf, falling silently onto the damp earth below. The air was cool and fresh against Rowan's face, carrying the unique green scent of the ferns themselves, a fragrance both earthy and clean. The sheer abundance of these tiny water jewels was astonishing. It was as if the night sky had wept stars onto the garden, and they had transformed into these liquid gems. Rowan moved a little further along the path, their gaze sweeping across other varieties of fern, the broad, leathery leaves of the hart's-tongue fern, each surface beaded with moisture, and the delicate, almost feathery maidenhair ferns, their tiny leaflets holding even tinier, glistening specks. Each plant, each frond, offered a unique variation on this theme of dew-kissed beauty. The quiet act of observation was deeply absorbing, a gentle meditation on the intricate details of the natural world. The light continued its slow, almost imperceptible brightening. The garden remained a place of profound stillness, the dewdrops holding their silent vigil, reflecting the quiet majesty of the awakening sky. Rowan felt a sense of deep peace settle within, a quiet joy in witnessing this transient, delicate spectacle. It was a beauty that would not last, that would vanish with the strengthening sun, making its present existence all the more precious. For now, the garden was a realm of shimmering pearls, a testament to the quiet magic that unfolds when the world is still and an observer is present to behold it. Chapter 3. The Awakening Garden. The soft, pearlescent glow in the east began to warm, blushing with the faintest hints of rose and the palest apricot. The auroral light was yielding to the more defined colors of true dawn, and with this subtle shift, the garden began to reveal itself more fully, its textures and forms emerging from the receding shadows. Rowan continued their slow, meandering walk along the narrow, dew-slick path, their movements gentle and attuned to the quiet pulse of the awakening earth. The air remained cool, but there was a subtle change in its quality, a feeling of awakening energy, still very subdued but present. Rowan's attention, so captivated by the dewdrops, now broadened to encompass other subtle signs of the garden's stirring delight. Near the edge of the fern patch, a small, unassuming plant with tightly furled buds caught their eye. Yesterday, these buds had been simply green. Now, at the very tip of one, a sliver of deep violet was visible, a promise of the flower that would unfurl later in the day. It was a tiny detail, easily missed, but Rowan noted it with a quiet sense of appreciation for these slow, gentle transformations. The dew still clung to the smooth surface of the bud, making the emergent color seem even richer, more jewel-like. Further along, the path curved around a weathered gray rock, half covered in a carpet of vibrant green moss. The moss, saturated with night moisture, was plump and soft-looking, its intricate miniature forest-like structure clearly visible in the growing light. Rowan paused, reaching out a hand to gently touch its surface. The moss felt cool and velvety, yielding softly under their fingertips. Tiny droplets of water were caught within its dense structure, glistening like captured stars. The scent of damp earth and stone rose faintly from this small, shaded patch. As the light grew, so did the sounds, though they remained delicate and sparse. From the direction of the woodland that bordered the garden, the first tentative chirp of a waking bird reached Rowan's ears. It was a single sleepy note, quickly followed by silence, then another, a little more confident. Soon, a soft, intermittent twittering began, the very first voices of the dawn chorus. It was not yet the full symphony, but rather the gentle tuning of instruments, a soft prelude to the day's song. Rowan listened, their head tilted slightly, absorbing these first fragile sounds. A faint rustle in the undergrowth beneath a large rhododendron bush caused Rowan to pause again. They stood perfectly still, watching. After a moment, a small, dark shape scurried briefly into view, a field mouse perhaps, or a vole, before disappearing again into the dense cover. The movement was quick, fleeting, a reminder of the hidden lives that coexisted within this peaceful space. The rustling sound, dry and brief, was another small thread in the slowly weaving tapestry of morning sounds. The light continued its gentle diffusion, now casting very long, soft shadows from the taller ferns and shrubs. These shadows lay like pools of deeper green upon the dew-kissed grass. Rowan noticed the way the light caught the edges of a spider's web strung between two tall grass stems, transforming the delicate threads into lines of silver. The web itself was a marvel of engineering, almost invisible until the light revealed its intricate pattern, each strand beaded with minute droplets of dew, making it sparkle and shimmer with every faint stirring of the air. Rowan observed a single broad plantain leaf near the path's edge. A large, perfect dewdrop had collected in its shallow central cup a tiny pool of crystal clear water. As Rowan watched, another smaller droplet, perched precariously on the leaf's sloping side, slowly began to roll. It moved with an almost imperceptible slowness, gathering other smaller droplets in its path until, with a tiny silent release, it merged into the larger pool. This small, quiet drama, a miniature event in a vast, awakening world, held Rowan's attention completely for a long moment. The garden was slowly, gently coming alive, revealing its subtle wonders one by one in the soft, unfolding light of dawn. Chapter 4. Warmth on stone, scent of earth. The hues in the eastern sky deepened, shifting from soft pastels to a more radiant gold and apricot as the sun itself neared the horizon. And then it happened, the first direct ray of sunlight, a slender spear of warm, golden light, pierced through a gap in the distant trees and touched the upper fronds of the tallest ferns in Rowan's garden. It was a transformative moment. The dew-kissed tips of these ferns instantly blazed with a brilliant, almost fiery light, as if they had been set alight from within. Slowly, majestically, the line of sunlight descended, painting more and more of the garden in its warm glow. Rowan watched this arrival, feeling a subtle shift in the air. The profound coolness of the pre-dawn began to recede, replaced by a gentle, nascent warmth. They continued their slow walk until they reached a familiar spot, a large, flat stone, worn smooth by time and weather, nestled amongst a patch of low-growing thyme. This stone was positioned to catch the early morning sun, and already its surface was beginning to absorb the new warmth. Rowan reached out and placed a hand upon it. The stone was no longer cool to the touch. Instead, a subtle, comforting warmth radiated from it, a warmth that felt alive and welcoming. Rowan settled onto the stone, the gentle heat seeping pleasantly through their thin clothing. From this vantage point, they could observe the sun's progress as it climbed higher, its light now streaming more generously into the garden. The long shadows began to shorten, and the dewdrops, which had been the garden's primary jewels, started to shrink and disappear, their moisture slowly returning to the air as fine, invisible vapor. The ferns, now losing their pearly coating, revealed their true, vibrant green, looking fresh and renewed. The air itself seemed to shimmer slightly in the growing light. As the sun warmed the damp earth, a new scent began to rise, that distinct, evocative fragrance of petrichor, the smell of sun on wet soil. It was a rich, loamy aroma mingled with the green scent of the plants and the faint, sweet perfume of the thyme crushed gently under the edge of the stone. Rowan breathed it in deeply, a scent that spoke of life, of growth, of the earth itself, awakening. It was a profoundly comforting and grounding aroma, a signature scent of early morning in the garden after a dewy night. A small iridescent beetle, its wing casings gleaming with metallic blues and greens, crawled slowly across the sun-warmed surface of the stone near Rowan's hand. Rowan watched its unhurried progress, its tiny legs moving with precision. It paused for a moment, antennae twitching, before continuing on its miniature journey. The sunlight caught its shell, making it flash with color, a tiny living jewel enjoying the morning warmth. In the grass nearby, a ladybug, bright red with black spots, clung to a blade of grass, also basking in the sun's rays. Rowan leaned back slightly, resting their palms on the stone, feeling its solidity and its gentle warmth. They looked up at the sky, now a clear, soft blue directly overhead, though still painted with gold, and rose toward the east. The distant bird song was more confident now, a melodious chorus weaving through the quiet air. A gentle breeze, the first real stirring of the air since dawn, rustled the leaves of the silver birch at the garden's edge, its leaves shimmering and dancing in the light. The sound was soft, like a whispered conversation. The feeling in the garden had shifted. The ethereal, mysterious beauty of the dew-laden dawn was giving way to a more vibrant, sunlit vitality. Yet the peace remained, a deep, underlying calm that the growing light and sound did not disturb, but rather seemed to enhance. Rowan sat for a while longer, simply absorbing these sensations, the warmth of the stone, the scent of the earth. The gentle sounds of the awakening garden, the beauty of the sunlight transforming everything it touched. It was a moment of quiet contentment, of being fully present in the simple, profound beauty of the morning. Chapter 5. Daybreak's full embrace. The sun, now clear of the horizon, climbed steadily, its light flooding the Fern Hollow Garden with a soft, golden radiance. The last traces of the auroral hues had faded from the sky, leaving behind a clear, pale blue expanse. Most of the dew had now evaporated, leaving the ferns and other plants looking lush and vibrant, their leaves glistening with a healthy sheen rather than the myriad tiny diamonds of earlier. The garden was fully awake, bathed in the gentle warmth and bright light of a new day. Rowan rose slowly from the sun-warmed stone, a lingering feeling of its comforting heat on their palms. They stretched gently, feeling the pleasant ease in their limbs. The air was still cool but carried the undeniable promise of a warmer day to come. The chorus of birdsong was now in full voice, a joyful, intricate melody spilling from the nearby woodland and the taller trees within the garden itself. The tiny, almost hesitant chirps of the pre-dawn had blossomed into a confident and complex symphony, celebrating the arrival of the light. Rowan began a slow, appreciative walk back toward the cottage, retracing their steps along the narrow path. The garden looked different now, transformed by the fuller light. Details that had been obscured in the dawn were now clear and distinct. The intricate patterns on a butterfly's wing as it flitted from one newly opened flower to another, the delicate veins on a broad leaf, the subtle variations in color on the bark of the old apple tree, all were revealed in the clear morning light. The shadows were shorter now, crisper, defining the shapes of plants and stones with greater clarity. As Rowan passed the patch of ostrich ferns, they noticed how the fronds, now dry, seemed to stand taller, their feathery plumes of vibrant, healthy green. The magic of the dewdrops was gone, but replaced by a different kind of beauty, the beauty of life in its full, sunlit expression. A gentle breeze rustled through the ferns, causing them to sway softly, their movements creating a quiet, whispering sound, like the gentle shushing of the sea. Rowan paused for a moment, listening to this soft, natural music. The scent of the thyme, warmed by the sun, was more pronounced now as Rowan passed the flat stone where they had rested. It mingled with the general fragrance of greenery and damp earth, creating a complex, pleasant aroma that was uniquely characteristic of this garden in the morning. Rowan saw a bumblebee, large and fuzzy, buzzing purposefully around a patch of flowering chives, its low hum another thread in the tapestry of morning sounds. It moved from one purple globe-like flower to another, diligently going about its work. Reaching the back door of the cottage, Rowan paused on the stone step, the same step from which they had first witnessed the faint hint of gray in the pre-dawn sky. The stone was now fully warmed by the sun, pleasant beneath their bare feet. They turned for one last look at the garden, now bright and alive, filled with light, sound, and subtle movement. The transformation from the deep stillness and shadow of the earliest hour to this vibrant, sun-kissed scene was complete. A sense of quiet fulfillment settled over Rowan, a gentle satisfaction from having been a silent witness to the garden's slow, beautiful awakening. The cottage door stood open, a welcoming rectangle of slightly dimmer, cooler air. Inside, the familiar, comforting sense of home awaited. Rowan took one final deep breath of the fresh morning air, filled with the essence of the awakened garden. Then, with a soft smile that was more an inner feeling than an outward expression, they stepped back over the threshold, carrying the peace and beauty of the dawn with them into the quiet routines of the day. The garden, now in daybreak's full embrace, continued its gentle existence, a tranquil haven bathed in the soft light of the new morning.